Thank you very much for joining us today on our latest discussion on how to use our risk register. So PL Projects has just created a risk register, which you can download our template on Project Management Tools via our website. For more information, if you just go to our website, which you can find at the bottom of our slides, www.plprojects.co.uk, or if you have any problems about downloading the register, feel free to email us at mail@plprojects.co.uk. We're going to be talking with Emma Huckerby. Emma is one of our award-winning project management consultants. She recently just completed a project at Network Rail Line Improvement from Manchester to York. She was a critical member of the risk management and project management team at Network Rail. She has created a template that you can all use, and she's going to walk us through how to use it and also the benefit if we get a walkthrough from yourself. Especially for those who are completing this maybe the first time or maybe the first few times. It'd be great if we could provide them a brief tutorial about how to complete this and then go into the benefits of how they can use this in their projects in their own office. So would you be able to just tell me if this wasn't here or how you completed this? Can we just go through each column quickly and discuss how you break it down?
Yeah, sure.
Great.
So your first column is your risk ID. Now, in every risk register or risk meeting, you will need to identify your risk. It's very much easier identifying it by number rather than the actual risk itself. The risk ID.
Sorry, why is that? So if I'm in a meeting in your risk review, would you genuinely be like risk ROO1? Would you use that rhetoric in a meeting?
Well, would use you'd address it with the title and the risk number.
Gotcha.
Because we find that I found that sometimes risks can be very similar, but not similar in the same aspects. So they need to have a number because your title might sound the same as another one.
Okay.
So when it comes to senior meetings and you can use this risk register to produce a dashboard, them numbers become very handy when you're plotting them on a heat map. So you can just put the numbers rather than the full title of the risk.
Perfect, and create something that's visually easy to read and gets the information across quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yes, sorry. So go ahead. So you were telling us that we need an ID.
Yeah, after you've got your ID number, which you can pre-populate yourself beforehand, or at least just you're aware of what number's next. The next column is the date identified. Now, it's always important to log the date that it was first raised. Now, this can be, it's brilliant for your audit trail. In 6 months down the line, if you're still looking at your risk register and saying, look, risk 001 got opened on 12th of September in 2020 and we still haven't fixed it yet, you know, it will bring alarm bells. So always having the date identified gives a good audit trail of knowing that it started or was raised on that day.
Gotcha.
The next column in status, now I've set that one to have a formula to show red and green. So green shows closed when you type closed in it, which obviously is good on a risk register because you're getting rid of your risks, and open with a red to make sure you're aware that these are open.
Is that the same? Sorry, is that the same for opportunities too? Or
yes.
Would you have to change it?
No, exactly the same, open and closed. Once an opportunity gets raised, opportunities, people in the project management field will be aware of this, have different things that you can deal with an opportunity, whereas risks, you can, a risk will impact, or it'll be closed, or it'll be no longer needed, whereas an opportunity, the opportunity will be realized, or you will exploit the opportunity, or the opportunity is no longer valid. So having an open and a closed status while you figure out what you're going to do with your opportunities or your risks is always good to have.
Okay, great.
The next column is raised by. I always find it good to put the name and the person's role, just to give you an idea of what influence they actually have on the project or the actual category of risks, which we will get to in a second. Always gives a good audit trail again to go back to that certain person. If you can't find the email, at least you've got the role and what area they do work in. Risk title. Now, many people do get confused with this one and just end up writing the whole risk on it. Whereas the risk title is just to summarize the risk or really, break it down. So, for example, the one on screen, we've used hazardous ice ground conditions. Now, that could relate to a lot of things. That could relate to people walking on it, or it could relate to cracks in the floor because of the freezingness. That can relate to a lot of things. That's why it comes in handy back again to your risk ID and your risk title being very important factors of audit trails.
Okay, great.
The next three columns, which are the ones that I think are the most valuable ones to entering your risk into this risk register, is, I don't know if people might have ever heard of the bow tie effect. You have a cause before you reach a risk, and then there's always an effect or leading to the risk if it does hit. Now, this is the perfect way of a person understanding what the actual risk is. So if you start with the first column, the risk cause, so if you write in a way of, due to Marina not having proper walking boots, there is a risk that Marina will fall on the ice. Now, this will lead to her breaking her ankle. Breaking it down into them three elements gives people a better perspective of what the actual risk is. And then it also aids in finding out a management strategy. Some people would look at that and go, well, we can't do anything about the weather. How would we help that risk? Well, if you read it, it's not the weather, it's Marina not having proper shoes or boots.
Yeah.
So that's how you would, that's breaking it down in that sense makes it easier for you to understand what the problem is, for you then to make a plan for that problem not to be as bad as it will be when it does hit, or if it hits.
And we might have hit on this earlier, but just to re-emphasize, what's the benefit of breaking these into this? Like, why don't you just say there's a risk of me breaking an ankle if it's icy?
Breaking them down into the three sections gives the writer, the author definitely, more understanding of what the risk is, what the cause and what the effect will be. And it also gives readers a better understanding. So, for example, if there's somebody in the room that hasn't been a part of the risk meeting before and they haven't got as much experience as other people, it breaks that risk down into them three categories so they can understand it as well. And like I just hit on before, it's a really good factor to helping you create a mitigation strategy so this risk will not hit your project.
And I guess your risk won't always be as simple as this example. We've obviously used a more simple example, but I'm sure you could think of when you were at Network Rail that the risks were more challenging to understand if you weren't a part of it all the time.
Certainly. Obviously with myself not having any knowledge in the overhead lines, the electrical side and the actual track work of the trains, that it became some of the risks when they were reading them were very, very hard for me to understand. So these three elements of breaking it down presents a picture, as you'd say, in your head, so you can actually see and imagine what that scenario is going to play out. That just leads us on to that the next column there, which says category of risk. Using this to summarize the risk area. Now, I came from a project which they had functional heads. It was a matrix structure, functional matrix structure project, which ensured we had like a commercial function, a project management, and then a planning function. Now, if you was to categorize your risk in a functional matrix setup, you usually have one person that is ahead of that department. Now, having that there, if we put weather conditions, you had somebody that was help, who would stop things affecting your project relating to weather.
Yeah.
For example, I mean, this is going a bit deep, but when they put stuff on the ground, sometimes they warm the ground up if it's bad weather conditions. Doing a project at that time of the year, you would have to factor that in. So having the category of risk helps you identify who it lies under, or who the risk will sit under, or the correct person to broach to help fix the problem.
Gotcha. So other categories like at Network Rail could have been like health and safety or HR or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. There was definitely the HR one, health and safety, and then we also had like a resources one. So if anything, someone said, our resources are being taken from one project to another, what can we do? This needs to be on the risk register. That would fall under the resources section. So we would know that we have a problem within the resource area.
Gotcha. And sorry, I've just noticed this. Why are these in different? Is there a particular reason why these titles are grouped by different colors?
It's just ease of filling out. When you go to it, there is a reasoning behind it. So because when you get to the pink area, that's all your cost related stuff, and then with the pink is before mitigation, the grey is after mitigation, and then the orange at the end is for any comments or action due dates. It just helps a bit more visualization when you adding the risks in. For example, in risk meetings, I could sit there and help a person break down the risk and get the information in all the green columns. Once it got to the pink columns, I would have to speak to someone in the risk meeting who can quantify that risk a bit more better. As a person leading the session sometimes wouldn't have an inside knowledge on how much a wall would cost to get built if it got broken down, or how much walking boots cost. So you would look to the commercial person or the person with the correct expertise to help you fill out that area. Same with the next column, someone who's maybe faced the risk before. Right, well, we can do that and put that in place. So it just helps you have that visualization of the areas that need to be filled in by or assisted by other people.
Does that impact, does that term, where you're getting that reference point, does that deal with who's involved in the category of risk? So if you're at Network Rail, and this was because if we were working on a new line and I was some sort of person that was working on the trains, and that was a risk that weather conditions were going to be bad and that I didn't have my proper Network Rail uniform on with my walking or my train boots, whatever they're actually called. And if it's weather related, would you be going to find the information about cost impact from that person in that category? Or is that a cost? Is that somebody who just deals with finances?
Within Network Rail, the person who was head of it would always know roughly on cost.
Okay, gotcha.
You'd always have your commercial person in there, because if they see something that goes up and, I don't know, say your project's worth 500 grand and a risk goes up at 4,999, that would send alarm bells for your commercial person straight away. So they need to be on there to be on top of what amount's getting put there. Because in the bigger picture, you have a risk pot. You have a certain amount of money for your risk. And if you have a risk register and all your risks would hit and they'd all have an impact, and that amount equates to more than the money you have in the pot, then you have a problem.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. Okay, great. Molly, sorry, I know I'm asking these questions as they come to mind. Is there anything that you wanted to jump in with, or are you happy for Emma to keep going?
Well, I've got a question about the next section, so I'll wait to see if she covers it. And
okay, great. So, sorry, go ahead, Emma.
So the next section, which is the mitigation and strategy, once you fill this one out, is so back to Marina not having her boots, adequate boots. So what can she do to stop herself from falling in the ice? Well, she can go source some new boots. Now, that doesn't actually take away the ice risk. Well, the risk of the ice, because we can't stop the ice. Things are inevitable. Some things you cannot stop. So the likelihood of the risk affecting now has been reduced to 1. So if she does fall, she's not going to break her leg, but she will, because she has the walking boots. So, sorry, if she does fall, that will be then, it will be a less of an impact because she has the walking boots in place. So this is how we get back to the new risk score, which is now very low. So if the risk was to hit, it's classed as a very low risk. So what sort of impact would it have? Well, she probably wouldn't break a leg because she probably wouldn't fall as bad as she would if she had normal shoes. So that section is really good for you to look at. Well, if we don't go get that risk mitigation in place, we're going to be faced with a high risk, with a high cost impact and a high schedule impact.
And this is just confirming, because I actually read this as the likely to occur of the mitigation strategy. No, this is referring to the risk, the likelihood of now the risk occurring.
Yeah. Okay. So it goes back to if the likelihood of it occurring in the first place was a 4, because it was very high that it was going to happen, and it is high on the agenda. But when she goes out and buys the boots that will help her walk in this ice, it brings the likelihood of it occurring down. Same with the impact.
Okay, great. Perfect.
So just to mention as well, which won't be clear, which is because I've set it up as a formula, to find out your risk score, likelihood is times by impact, which gives you your risk score, which then relates back into the top section with the risk thresholds. Again, this is entirely up to you. You utilize it and change it and adapt it to your own project. So keeping the risk score, I would say, is the best thing to do. But when you go into the cost impact and the schedule impact, that's all edited and changed on your actual project.
Okay, great.
So that's what I was going to ask. In terms of the risk thresholds, if you had, say, a risk that was going to cost under 5k, but the schedule impact would be 1 to 3 months, you can just change this around and make it your own.
Yeah. Like I say again, every project is unique, different. Every time somebody does a project, it will be different to a different one that's been out there before. So you edit this for you. Obviously, your highest impact is going to be the cost of your project. It can't reach over that. That would be very alarming for somebody, or a cost to occur, and it'd be classed as very high. So this project here, 500k, that's the highest that they could go to, and it'd be on their alarm bells. So it is entirely up to you. You adjust that top bit to suit your needs. But in terms of the risk score column, I would leave that one because it's just a 1 to 4, and that's up to you to give the actual scoring yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And I think we've covered actually a lot of the benefits. I was just going to ask about the benefits of using this, but I think we've covered that throughout the discussion. I'm very happy to end it here. Unless, Emma, is there any last minute tips or anything that you think that we haven't hit on or asked you today that would be beneficial for people to know?
Yeah, there's just one main thing that I would take from it, because some people think, oh, risk registers, they just sit in some people's SharePoints or, data data collection environments. They'll just sit in there. Well, one thing I did use in my last project, we utilized the risk register to create a dashboard. And this gives a great visualization for others to see what's going on in your risk profile for your project. Each column can be filtered. So if producing a risk dashboard, you can filter the RAG status column, which then will give you, you can present it in any sort of dashboard. You can do your top 5 risks. You can have a heat map. People who are familiar with risk management within projects will understand what a heat map is. It just goes, it's basically explanatory, goes on the colours: red, very hot; blue, green, very cold, not active on the risk register. So this whole register can be utilized to create dashboards for other people to see what your risk profile is about.
Great. Well, maybe that's something we consider. If we hear from people it would be beneficial, maybe that's something we would help create a template for, if that's possible. So we'll speak about that offline. But I think that's a really important thing to add, that it just doesn't need to stop at this template. It needs to be used beneficially and shared with other stakeholders in the project.
Yeah, definitely. Risk registers are for everyone to have a look at, but I would always advise that one person takes sole role in completing it, because then that one person will have the understanding of every risk on that register.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, Emma, very much. This is our contact information for those who need it. Please ask Emma or myself any questions you have about using our template, and we will help you as best as we can. As I said in the beginning, you can download it from our website, PL Projects. We also have a Twitter, a Facebook page, and a LinkedIn. We're very active. You can see us abbreviated under PLP or PLP Central for Twitter. Once again, just email us as well at mail@plprojects.co.uk if you have any questions about our register or any, if you need any information about our next training dates or anything else that we could help our network with. We're very keen to supply resources that are beneficial and will help people deliver the project successfully. Thanks so much, Emma, and thanks so much, Molly, for participating.
Thank you.